Have you ever trusted someone so much that you thought no matter what happened, they would always protect you? That's how I felt about my sister. She was supposed to be my best friend, my safe place, the one person I could lean on when the world got too heavy. But one night in the middle of the forest, I realized I couldn't trust her at all. In fact, she wanted me gone. The moonlight barely cut through the thick trees as we set up our small camp. My sister's laughter echoed as she teased me for being afraid of the dark. I thought it was all harmless fun. Just her way of being older, tougher, braver. But then, without warning, she took my flashlight, pushed me into the shadows, and whispered in a chilling voice, "Meet Grizzly Bear," before running back toward camp and leaving me behind. First, I thought it was a cruel prank. I stumbled through the dark, calling her name, expecting her to jump out and scare me like she always did. But the silence stretched too long. My heart pounded against my ribs. The forest around me was alive with sounds. Branches snapping, owls hooting, and something heavier moving in the distance. That's when it hit me. She wasn't coming back. Fear clawed at me, but anger burned just as strong. Why would she do this? Did she want me to get hurt? Or worse? Every sound became a threat, every shadow a monster. And in the middle of it all was me, betrayed by the one person I thought I could always trust. That night changed everything. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about finding out why my own sister wanted me gone. The morning of our camping trip began like any other summer day. The sun was already high, casting a golden glow through my bedroom curtains when I woke up. I could hear birds outside, chirping as if they knew something exciting was about to happen. My sister Lily had been buzzing with energy all week about this trip. She said it would be an adventure, a chance to break away from our phones, our neighborhood, and everything ordinary. I wasn't as thrilled as she was, but I wanted to spend time with her. She was my older sister after all, and I still looked up to her, even if she sometimes treated me like a nuisance. We packed quickly, stuffing snacks, bottled water, a flashlight, 2 sleeping bags, and a few matches into our old hiking bag. Lily hummed a tune as she worked, her ponytail swinging back and forth. She was always the confident one, the leader, the type who seemed to know exactly what she wanted. I, on the other hand, liked security, knowing where I'd sleep, what I'd eat, and that I'd be safe. But I didn't complain. Instead, I followed her lead just like I always did. By early afternoon, we were driving toward the forest. The air smelled fresh, full of pine and damp earth. I leaned against the car window, watching the scenery change from houses and streets to endless trees, each one towering over the road like green giants. Lily glanced at me and smirked. "You're nervous, aren't you?" she teased. "Not nervous," I lied. "Just cautious." She laughed, a sharp sound that made me feel smaller. "You worry too much. That's why you need this. To toughen up." Her words stung, but I didn't reply. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of being right. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe she wasn't bringing me here just for fun. Maybe she wanted to prove something about me or about herself. We reached the edge of the forest and parked the car on a dirt road. The woods stretched out before us, dark and endless. I swallowed hard as I stepped out, the ground soft beneath my shoes. Lily slung the bag over her shoulder with ease and started walking ahead, not even checking to see if I could keep up. I hurried after her, my heart thudding in rhythm with my footsteps. The deeper we went, the quieter it became. The sound of cars faded until all I could hear was the crunch of leaves underfoot and the occasional call of a distant bird. Shadows stretched long between the trees, and even though it was still daylight, the forest felt darker than I expected. It was beautiful, yes, but there was something unsettling about it too, like a secret waiting just beyond sight. After about an hour of walking, Lily finally stopped in a small clearing surrounded by tall oaks. The ground was flat, and a fallen log made a perfect bench. "This is it," she announced proudly. "Our campsite." I nodded, though my throat felt tight. "It's nice," I managed. She grinned. "See, I told you it would be fun." We set up our small camp. Lily built a fire pit with rocks, while I laid out the sleeping bags side by side. I kept glancing at the trees, half expecting something to move between them. My imagination was running wild, filling the silence with images of glowing eyes and hidden animals. Lily noticed me looking and shook her head. "You're such a baby sometimes," she said. "Nothing's out there. Relax." I wanted to believe her, so I forced a smile and nodded. But inside my unease only grew. By the time the sun began to set, the forest turned into a different world. The sky bled orange and purple, and the air grew colder. The trees looked taller, their shadows stretching across the clearing like fingers reaching for us. The crackle of the fire Lily lit was the only comforting sound. I huddled close to it, watching the flames dance. Lily roasted marshmallows on a stick, laughing when one caught fire and turned black. I tried to join her in the laughter, but the uneasiness was heavy in my chest. "Do you ever feel like—" I hesitated, unsure if I should say it. "Like we're not alone?" A smirk. "Not unless you count the grizzly bears." Her tone was playful, but her eyes gleamed with something sharper. "Bears?" My heart skipped. He chuckled. "Relax. They don't usually come near people. Unless, of course, they smell food or fear." I froze, unsure if she was joking. She grinned at my expression and leaned closer. "Don't worry, little sibling. If we meet one, I'll let you say hi first." I forced a weak laugh, but her words crawled under my skin like cold insects. She always teased me, but this felt different. The way she said it. Almost like she wanted it to happen. As the last light drained from the sky, I felt the forest close in. Every sound seemed louder. The crack of a twig, the rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl. My instincts screamed at me to stay near the fire, but Lily stood up suddenly, brushing off her hands. "Let's go explore," she said. "In the dark." My voice cracked. "Of course," she replied smoothly. "That's when the forest is alive." I shook my head. "I don't think that's a good idea." She rolled her eyes. "Fine. Stay here if you're scared. But don't cry if something finds you while you're alone." With that, she grabbed the flashlight and walked into the trees, her steps confident and steady. For a moment, I sat frozen, torn between fear of the dark and fear of being left behind. Finally, I scrambled up and followed her, calling her name. She didn't answer. The beam of the flashlight flickered in the distance, then vanished. "Lily!" My voice echoed through the trees, swallowed quickly by the night. That's when I heard it. Her voice, low and teasing, drifting back to me like a cruel whisper. "Meet Grizzly Bear." Then silence. My stomach dropped, and I realized with horror that she wasn't joking anymore. She had left me alone in the heart of the forest. The first few seconds after Lily's voice faded were the longest of my life. Her words, "Meet Grizzly Bear," rang inside my head like an echo I couldn't escape. I stood frozen, my body stiff, my breath shallow, and my ears straining to catch any sound that might tell me where she went. But all I heard was the forest itself. The wind moved through the trees like whispers. Leaves rustled in the distance. Somewhere an owl called, its cry sharp and eerie. The fire from our campsite had become a dim glow behind me, already fading into the shadows of the forest. I called her name again, louder this time. "Lily!" My voice cracked, bouncing back at me in pieces. No answer. Just silence so thick it felt heavy, pressing down on my chest. I waited, expecting her to jump out and laugh, the way she always did after one of her cruel jokes. But no laughter came. A knot of fear twisted in my stomach. Slowly I turned in circles, scanning the trees. Every trunk looked the same. The ground was uneven, roots snaking across it like ropes waiting to trip me. My heart thudded in my ears, louder than the sounds of the forest. I swallowed hard, trying to calm myself. Maybe she hadn't gone far. Maybe she was hiding, waiting for me to panic so she could enjoy the show. But then another thought struck me. What if she really meant it? What if she'd left me here on purpose, with no intention of coming back? The idea sent a cold shiver down my spine. I couldn't stand still any longer. I started walking, calling her name every few steps, hoping she'd get bored of her game and reveal herself. My hands trembled, and I kept brushing against tree trunks just to feel something solid, something real. But the deeper I walked, the less I recognized. The fire's faint glow had completely disappeared behind me, swallowed by darkness. I realized with horror that I had lost sight of the campsite. The forest around me felt alive. Every sound made me jerk my head. Twigs snapped under my shoes, and each crack sounded like footsteps. My imagination went wild, painting images of glowing animal eyes watching me from the shadows, waiting for me to trip. I stopped suddenly, holding my breath. There was another sound not from me. Something heavy moved through the brush, slow and deliberate. My skin prickled and my mouth went dry. "Lily!" I whispered, almost too scared to say her name out loud. No response. The sound faded into the distance, but I knew it wasn't my sister. It was something else, something bigger. My pulse raced. My instincts screamed at me to move, but where? The trees pressed close on all sides, identical and endless. I forced myself to breathe. "Think," I muttered. "Just think." My pockets were nearly empty except for a small pack of matches and a folded granola bar wrapper I'd shoved in earlier. I cursed myself for not insisting on carrying more. Lily had the flashlight, the bag, the food, everything. She had left me with nothing. The panic swelled again, threatening to choke me. I stumbled forward, my hands brushing branches and bark, desperate to find some landmark that might guide me back. My legs shook with every step. I tripped over a root and fell hard, my palms scraping against the ground. For a moment I just lay there, staring up at the patch of sky through the branches. Stars blinked faintly above, distant and indifferent. I felt so small, so powerless, like the forest had swallowed me whole. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to cry. Crying wouldn't help. Crying wouldn't bring her back. Pushing myself up, I wiped my hands on my jeans and forced myself to stand tall, though every muscle wanted to curl into a ball and hide. I needed light. Fire. Something to keep me safe. Gathering shaky handfuls of dry twigs and leaves, I knelt on the ground. My fingers fumbled as I struck a match. The tiny flame flickered, fragile against the night air, but it was enough to ignite the small pile. Relief washed through me as the fire grew, crackling and spitting sparks. Its glow pushed the shadows back, just a little, but enough to make me feel less alone. I huddled close to it, wrapping my arms around my knees. The warmth soothed me, but my mind was far from calm. I couldn't stop replaying Lily's face in my head, the cold smirk, the sharpness in her tone. This wasn't just a prank. She hadn't run off to laugh at me from behind a tree. No, she wanted me scared. She wanted me lost. But why? The question tore at me, heavy and unanswerable. She was my sister. My blood. Weren't we supposed to protect each other? I thought back to when we were younger, when she used to hold my hand crossing the street, when she would scare away bullies at school. That sister was gone. Now there was someone else, a stranger who looked like her but seemed to enjoy my fear. The fire crackled softly, pulling me back to the present. I listened to the night, the constant symphony of insects and rustling leaves. Sometimes it sounded normal, harmless. Other times it felt like a warning. The wind carried faint growls, or maybe my mind twisted the sounds into threats. Either way, I knew I had to stay alert. Minutes stretched into hours. My fire burned low, and I fed it more twigs, desperate to keep the light alive. My eyes darted around, scanning for Lily, for danger, for anything. I half hoped she'd appear, laugh at me, and call me pathetic. At least then I'd know I wasn't truly abandoned. But she never came. And in that endless night, a new realization began to form in my chest. Sharp, painful, and undeniable. I wasn't just afraid of the forest anymore. I was afraid of my sister. The fire was my only companion as the night dragged on. Its glow painted the trees in flickering shades of gold and black, but beyond that small circle of light, the forest was a dark, endless wall. Every crackle of burning would made me flinch. Every distant sound made my stomach knot tighter. I hugged my knees to my chest, trying to make myself feel smaller, safer. But no matter how close I sat to the fire, the truth was clear. I was alone. Sleep tugged at my eyes, heavy and relentless. My body was exhausted from fear, but I couldn't let myself rest. What if the fire went out? What if something was waiting just beyond the light? I forced myself awake by nibbling at the last crumbs of the granola wrapper in my pocket. The taste was stale and unsatisfying, but it gave me something to focus on besides the pounding in my chest. As I sat there, I noticed something strange. The forest wasn't just noisy, it was patterned. There were stretches of silence, followed by sudden bursts of movement, like something large was circling me. Branches creaked under a weight too heavy for a bird. Leaves crunched in a steady rhythm, stopping whenever I strained to listen. It was as though the night itself had eyes, watching me from all directions. At one point I swore I heard breathing. Not my own, but deeper, heavier, as if some creature was standing just beyond the ring of light. My heart skipped wildly, and I clutched a burning stick from the fire, holding it out like a sword. "Stay back!" I shouted into the darkness, my voice trembling. Nothing answered. The sound faded, but the dread clung to me like cold fog. The hours crawled by, and eventually, dawn began to break. Faint streaks of gray and pink stretched across the sky, pushing back the suffocating blackness. For the first time I felt a sliver of hope. The forest didn't seem as threatening under the weak light of morning. I could finally see the trees, the uneven ground, the smoke rising from my dying fire. But what hit me hardest was the sight of our camp, or rather, the lack of it. No tent, no supplies, no bag, no Lily. Just the small clearing where I had stopped and made my own fire. My throat tightened as the realization sank in. I wasn't anywhere near our campsite anymore. Somehow, in the panic of chasing after her, I had wandered far from where we'd started. The weight of hunger gnawed at me, and my stomach growled loudly in the quiet morning air. I had no food, no water, and no idea how far I was from safety. My only choice was to move. I kicked dirt over the ashes of my fire and stood, brushing the dirt from my hands. The forest looked different in the daylight, less like a monster, more like a maze. The trees stretched in every direction, each one a twin of the other. I tried to remember which way we had walked the day before, but the memory was fuzzy. My panic had erased all sense of direction. I picked a path and started walking, forcing my legs to move even though they ached. The forest floor was damp with morning dew, and the air smelled sharp and earthy. Birds chirped overhead, and the sound should have been comforting, but it only reminded me of how far I was from civilization. As I walked, I kept scanning the ground for signs. Footprints, broken branches, anything that might mean Lily had passed through. For a while I found nothing, and despair threatened to swallow me. But then, after nearly an hour, I spotted something that made my heart leap. A scuffed patch of dirt, with faint shoe prints pressed into it. I crouched down, tracing the marks with my finger. They were fresh, not yet washed away by wind or rain. Relief and anger flooded me all at once. Lily had been here. She had walked this way. I wasn't completely abandoned after all. But the question burned in my mind. Was she leaving a trail on purpose, or was I simply chasing the ghost of her cruelty? I followed the footprints carefully, pushing through underbrush and ducking under low branches. The prints led me deeper into the forest, twisting and turning as though she had no destination in mind. At times, the tracks disappeared on hard ground, and I had to circle around until I found them again. After what felt like hours, the trail ended at another clearing. At first glance, it looked ordinary, just another break in the trees. But then I saw it, a piece of cloth snagged on a branch, fluttering in the breeze. I recognized it instantly. It was from Lily's jacket. I grabbed it, my hands trembling. "Lily!" I shouted, my voice hoarse. "I know you're here. Stop hiding." The forest swallowed my words, offering no answer. I stood in the middle of the clearing, the cloth clutched tightly in my fist. My anger boiled over, mixing with fear until I felt dizzy. Why was she doing this? Did she hate me that much? Or was she testing me like she had hinted before? I sank to my knees, pressing the cloth to my face. It still smelled faintly of her perfume. Familiar, almost comforting. But it was a cruel comfort, because it reminded me that the sister I thought I knew was gone. In her place was someone who wanted to see me suffer. The sun climbed higher, beating down through the trees. Sweat trickled down my neck, and my throat burned with thirst. I scanned the clearing, desperate for water. A faint sound caught my ear. A trickle, faint but steady. I followed it, pushing through dense brush until I found a narrow stream winding between the rocks. I dropped to my knees and cupped my hands, drinking greedily. The water was cool and sharp, soothing my dry throat. For a moment I felt alive again, like maybe I could survive this after all. But survival wasn't enough. I needed answers. I needed to know why Lily had left me. As I sat by the stream, a thought hardened inside me. She wanted to test me, fine. If she wanted me to prove I could survive on my own, I would. But when I found her, I wouldn't just ask why. She would have to face what she'd done. The forest was no longer just a place of fear. It had become my battleground. And I wasn't going to lose. The sun climbed higher as I sat by the stream, its warmth soaking into my skin. My body was grateful for the water, but my mind was restless. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily's smirk, heard her cruel words echoing through the night. I wanted to believe she hadn't meant it, that it was just a terrible joke gone too far. But the scraps of evidence, her voice fading into the trees, the footprints leading me deeper, the torn piece of her jacket, told another story. She had left me here deliberately. She wanted me to struggle. She wanted to see if I'd break. That thought hardened me. If she thought I would curl up and cry, she was wrong. I was tired of being the sibling who followed, the one who depended on her for direction. For once, I would take control. I would find her, and I would make her answer for what she had done. I wiped my mouth and stood, brushing dirt from my jeans. The stream curved to the right, and I decided to follow it. Water usually led somewhere. Maybe to a road, or maybe to Lily herself. The forest was quieter now, the morning birds fading into silence as the heat thickened. My footsteps crunched against damp soil, and sometimes I caught glimpses of movement in the corner of my eye. Squirrels darting up trees, or rabbits slipping into burrows. After an hour I found more signs. A plastic wrapper snagged on a bush. A crushed soda can near a tree root. Both were ours, I was sure of it. Lily had dropped them, maybe on purpose, maybe carelessly. Either way, they pulled me onward like a trail of breadcrumbs. My stomach growled with hunger, but I pushed through it. I imagined Lily ahead of me, walking with that same cocky stride, probably laughing at the thought of me stumbling after her. The image fueled me, gave me energy where my body wanted to give up. By midday, the heat was heavy and suffocating. I paused in the shade of a thick oak tree, wiping sweat from my forehead. That's when I heard it, a sound that froze me in place. The step. Not animals, not the random rustling I'd grown used to, but steady, deliberate human steps. My heart pounded. I crouched low, peering through the brush. The footsteps grew louder, closer. A shadow shifted between the trees, and then I saw her. Lily. She looked almost unreal after so many hours of searching. Her hair was messy, strands sticking out of her ponytail. Her jacket hung open, one sleeve torn where I had found the scrap. She carried the flashlight in her hand, swinging it idly like it was nothing. For a second, all I felt was relief. I wanted to run to her, to grab her and shake her and ask why she had done this. But something stopped me. The way she walked, calm, unhurried, as though she had never been lost at all. Her face carried no worry, no guilt, only a faint, smug smile. I stepped out from the brush. Lily. She stopped instantly, turning her head. Her eyes widened, but not with surprise, more like mild amusement. Well, look at you, she said. Still alive. Her words stung, sharper than I expected. What's wrong with you? I demanded, my voice cracking. Why did you leave me out here? She tilted her head, examining me like I was some strange creature. I told you. I wanted to see if you'd survive. You're always clinging to me, always acting like the world is too scary. I thought maybe it was time you learned. That's not teaching, I snapped. That's cruel. My fists clenched at my sides. You left me in the dark with nothing. Do you know how scared I was? Her smile didn't falter. And yet here you are. You didn't die. You built a fire, didn't you? You found water. You tracked me. Looks like I was right. You just needed a little push. I stared at her, my anger bubbling hotter with every word. A push. You could have gotten me killed. What if there really had been a bear? What if I hadn't found water? What if I'd never made it back? She shrugged, as though those possibilities meant nothing. Then you would have proved me wrong. Her casual tone was worse than shouting. It made me realize how little my fear had mattered to her. She hadn't cared if I cried, if I got lost, if I felt like the forest itself was hunting me. She had cared only about proving a point, that I was weak and that she was the one in control. I took a shaky breath, trying to steady my voice. You're not a teacher, Lily. You're a bully. That word finally seemed to pierce her calm. Her smile faltered for just a second, and her eyes narrowed. Don't call me that, she hissed. But it's true, I pressed on, my voice trembling but stronger now. You think this makes you strong, leaving me to fend for myself. No, it just shows how small you really are. You needed me to suffer so you could feel powerful. Her jaw tightened, and for a moment I thought she might lash out. But instead she turned her gaze away, staring into the trees. You don't understand, she muttered. Then make me understand, I shot back. She was silent for a long time. The forest buzzed around us, insects humming, leaves rustling. Finally she looked at me again, her expression colder than before. I just wanted to know if I could live without you. If you could live without me. Because someday you'll have to. The words hit me harder than anything else. My breath caught in my throat. What are you talking about? You're my sister. We're supposed to stick together. She didn't answer. Instead, she started walking again, brushing past me as though the conversation was over. For a moment, I stood frozen, torn between chasing after her and letting her disappear into the forest again. But something had shifted inside me. The fear that had held me captive since she left me was gone, replaced by something stronger. I realized I didn't need her approval. I didn't need her to guide me or protect me, or even stand beside me. I had already survived a night alone. I had already proven I was stronger than she thought. I turned to follow her, but this time it wasn't out of dependence. It was out of determination. I wasn't going to let her walk away without giving me the truth. The silence between us grew heavier with every step. Lily walked ahead, her flashlight swinging casually at her side even though the daylight had long replaced the need for it. I followed a few paces behind, my eyes locked on her back. A part of me still wanted to shake her, to scream, to demand the sister I once trusted back from whatever version of her this was. But another part of me, the stronger part now, was done begging. I wasn't the same sibling who had followed her into the forest yesterday. I had been abandoned, terrified, pushed to my limits, and I had survived. That changed everything. The forest stretched endlessly before us, branches clawing at the sky like skeletal hands. My body was exhausted, but my mind churned. Questions raced through me. Why did she want to test me? Why had she spoken about living without me? As though she expected us to separate forever. Each time I opened my mouth to ask, the words caught in my throat. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. Eventually we reached another clearing. The sun was dipping lower, painting the trees in orange light. Lily finally stopped and turned to face me. Her expression was unreadable, caught between annoyance and something softer, almost regret. You should head back, she said flatly. The road isn't too far if you keep north. You'll be fine. Her tone lit a spark of anger in me. That's it. You leave me to fend for myself, and now you just send me off like nothing happened. You can't do that, Lily. Not anymore. Her jaw clenched. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she sighed, lowering her eyes. You don't get it. You've never gotten it. I needed to know. Know what? Cut in. My voice shook, but I stood tall. That I could survive without you. I already proved that. Or maybe you needed to know that you could survive without me. Well, guess what, Lily, you can. So congratulations. You got your answer. But you lost something too. Her gaze snapped to mine, sharp and searching. And what's that? Me, I whispered. The word hung between us like a final blow. For the first time, her face cracked. The confidence slipped, replaced by a flicker of pain she tried to hide but couldn't. She opened her mouth, closed it, then looked away. Before either of us could say more, a sound tore through the clearing, a low, guttural growl that froze my blood. My head jerked toward the trees, and there it was. A massive shadow moving between the trunks. My worst fear had finally become real. The grizzly bear. It lumbered into view, its shoulders broad, its fur a dark brown that caught the light of the setting sun. Its eyes locked on us, and the air seemed to vanish from my lungs. My heart hammered, my legs trembled, and every instinct screamed to run. But I couldn't. Running meant death. I remembered the survival tips I'd once read, almost mocking at the time. Don't turn your back, don't make sudden moves, make yourself look big. I straightened, raising my arms, though my body wanted to collapse. Don't move, I whispered to Lily, my voice sharp and urgent. For once, she didn't argue. Her face had gone pale, her lips pressed tight. The bear huffed, sniffing the air, its massive paws crushing the earth as it edged closer. My throat was dry, but I forced myself to stay steady. The seconds dragged, each one an eternity. The bear took another step, then another, until it was so close I could see the muscles rippling beneath its fur. My knees nearly buckled, but I held firm. The bear studied us, its head swaying slightly, then let out a deep grunt. Finally, mercifully, it turned, lumbering back into the trees. I didn't breathe until it disappeared completely. My legs gave out, and I collapsed to the ground, my chest heaving. Lily fell beside me, her hands trembling violently. For the first time since this nightmare began, she looked genuinely shaken. We sat in silence, both gasping for air, both processing how close we had come to the end. Then she turned to me, her eyes glistening. I didn't think. She stopped, swallowed hard. I didn't think it would ever be real. I just wanted to scare you to make you stronger. I didn't think I was putting you in danger like that. Her voice cracked, and for the first time, it sounded like my sister again. Not the cold stranger who had left me, but the girl I used to trust. A part of me wanted to comfort her, to say we were okay, that we had made it through. But another part of me couldn't forget the nights I had spent alone, the fear that had carved itself into my bones. You didn't think, I said quietly. That's the problem. You didn't think about me at all. Tears welled in her eyes, and she turned away, ashamed. I'm sorry, she whispered. The words hung in the air, fragile and broken. I wanted them to fix everything, but they didn't. They couldn't. The sun dipped lower, and I stood, brushing dirt from my clothes. Come on, I said, my voice steady now. We need to get out of here before it gets dark again. She nodded, rising slowly. For once, she didn't lead. She followed. We walked in silence, side by side but miles apart in spirit. The trees thinned gradually, the sound of the road faintly reaching our ears. When we finally stepped out of the forest and onto the dirt road where we had left the car, I felt a rush of relief. But it was hollow, empty. I had survived the forest. I had survived the bear. But something deeper had been lost. Something no road or car could bring back. Lily glanced at me as we reached the car. Her eyes were red, her face streaked with dirt and tears. She opened her mouth to speak, but I shook my head. Not now, I said. Maybe not ever. The silence that followed was final. As we drove away, the forest shrinking behind us, I realized the truth. I had gone in as the younger sibling who trusted my sister completely, and I was leaving as someone entirely different. I had faced the dark, the hunger, the fear, even death itself, and I had stood through it. I no longer needed Lily to protect me. But the cost was high. I had survived the forest, but I had lost my sister. If this story shook you, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Twisted Fate Chronicle for more gripping tales. Your support keeps the stories alive. Join the journey today.